From Synozur, this is Polaris. I'm Chris McNulty. AI continues to upend traditional assumptions and relationships across the world of technology. As the planet moves beyond 170 zettabytes of information, how can traditional approaches to managing and orchestrating that content keep up? In the world of AI, longtime content management rivals Microsoft and M-Files are partnering to develop new solutions that bring the best of M-Files content management to the M365 platform. Today, we'll talk to both companies to learn how are they working together, what does this mean for customers, and what can we expect across the world of content management. This is Polaris. Welcome to Polaris Pathways. I'm your host, Chris McNulty, Chief Technology Officer at Synozur. Synozur, the transformation company, reimagines business for our clients, navigating strategies and leadership culture with ease. Today, I'm excited to have two experts joining us to talk about the future of content management and how AI and new partnerships are changing the game. Our guests are Ryan Barry, Vice President of Strategic Operations and Corporate Development at M-File, an innovator in intelligent document management, and Ian Story, a principal architect at Microsoft who has helped shape SharePoint and content services for enterprise customers for years. Together, they bring a 360-degree view of how businesses can better handle their information. They'll join us in a few minutes. But first, let's define our terms and our data points. As usual, our reading list and references will be included in the show notes. The content management market is already huge, $73 billion and growing by our most recent forecasts. More importantly, the data within our companies is exploding. About 80% of all new data is unstructured content, documents, emails, videos, and more. 95% of businesses say managing that unstructured data is a major challenge. The other 5% of those businesses haven't checked their file servers yet. Earlier, we mentioned that 170 zettabyte projection from IDC. How much data is that? Imagine a stack of paper stacked up 1.8 light years high. With so much information sprawled across different systems, it's no wonder organizations feel like they're drowning in documents. But the good news, new solutions are emerging to tame the chaos. Analysts note that unstructured data, aka content, is gold to AI. Big players like Microsoft are laser focused on making sure no file is left behind in silos. In other words, if you want great AI and insights, you need to get your content house in order. And that's where our guests come in. Just a few weeks ago, M-Files and Microsoft announced a first-of-its-kind partnership to do just that. M-Files became the first enterprise document management system to natively use the Microsoft 365 cloud as its backend. This means you no longer have to choose between a specialized content solution and the Microsoft platform. They've combined forces. We'll dive into what that partnership really means for you today. So, whether you're a business leader worried about governance or you're just tired of not finding the files you need, we're seeing new approaches that can help. Okay, we have Ryan and Ian waiting in our virtual green room. Let's go. Welcome back. Today, I'm happy to introduce Ryan Barry from M-Files and Ian Story from Microsoft. Gentlemen, welcome to Polaris.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be here.
To be here, Chris. Thank you.
So, where are we calling in from today? Ryan, where are you?
I'm in sunny 96-degree Manhattan today.
I remember early in my career working in New York and the misery of being in Manhattan on the subway in mid-July when it's 96 degrees underground. Fortunately, there were plenty of interesting places to get away to. Ian, are you underground?
No, not underground. I'm just outside of Seattle, at home here, and everything is good.
So, Ryan, I know you were from Western Massachusetts. You went to Williams. What were you like in college?
I was a football player in college, so I was spending a lot of time running around on. We had these practice fields that were basically down by a river, and so I spent all my time there or in the library, which is, I think, what Williams is known for. And so I think hopefully I'm making somebody proud by saying I spent a lot of time there.
Did you know when you were at Williams that your career was going to lead you to driving strategy for a content management pioneer?
If I could have dreamed it, then I would have. I think I would have been really, really excited by that. At the time, I was very into med school, and so I spent my first couple of years gearing up to go take the MCATs. And credit to somebody who said, "I think you might want to try something a little different." And I ended up going down the kind of consulting, finance path, which has in turn led me here. But this is far more interesting than what I thought I'd be, what I thought I would have been doing at that age.
And Ryan, I know your journey led you through Boston in private equity, which took you to M-Files. Could you share a little bit about what you're doing at M-Files?
I lead our strategic operations business unit at the company and also our corporate development unit. So that has put me on point, very fortunately, to spend all this time with Ian over the last, it's getting, I think we can say almost a year now. Like I think we crossed that mark, but it feels like from when I started with the business, which was about 10 months ago at this point, I've had a chance to spend time with Ian every week, certainly maybe more than that, and on most weeks.
Thanks for sharing that. Ian, you've got an interesting arc too. I know you start in New York and then it brings you out to the West Coast. So talk to me about that journey a bit.
Yeah, so grew up on a horse farm. We bred and raised racehorses. I also have spent a lot of time in New York City in the summer in Yonkers, which is almost like Manhattan, just not quite. And if you think it's hot there, try being at the racetrack. Oh my goodness, in August or something, hot and just, everything smells great at the racetrack. There's a reason I moved all the way across the country, Chris. Moved to Maine. Kind of high school years there, and all the time, even when I was a little kid on the horse farm, I would go down to the end of the street and get the newspaper every morning, and I would tell my mom about the weather in Seattle and how it's so nice in Seattle. Oh, it's so hot here, we need to go to Seattle. Or, oh, there's so much snow here, we need to go to Seattle. I was fixated on Seattle as a little kid. Now, my mom probably thought it was for the weather, but really it was because Nintendo was headquartered in Redmond. And I knew that. And hey, went to school in Seattle and never left.
And share with the audience what you're doing now.
I'm principal architect for OneDrive and SharePoint. Do a whole bunch of things in and around content management, which is really what I've spent my whole career doing. The last few months, working really closely with Ryan and the M-Files team on this great partnership that we're going to talk about today. Yep, definitely. It's been fantastic. Fantastic.
One side note, Ryan, with all your time in Massachusetts, have you retained any loyalty to the Boston Red Sox?
You have to. I think about myself as growing up in Massachusetts. I met my wife there, met my wife in Boston. I may be a bigger Patriots fan than I am a Sox fan, but I have no other loyalty to a baseball team. It has to be the Sox.
Yeah, I'm going to share the Red Sox Patriots mania, but I think it's fascinating for all three of us with the different arcs we've been on. We're recording this on the cusp of the LA Dodgers playing at Fenway this weekend. And by the time you, dear audience, are listening to this, we will know what happened in that series. We were talking about who we think is going to win. And Ian is naturally, obviously, from your times in New York and Maine and Seattle, your team, of course, is...
Yep. It's funny how these things work out. When I was a little boy, the Dodgers, Kirk Gibson and Oral Hershiser made a big impression on me. So yeah, as I sit up straight in my chair, you can see who I'm rooting for. But it's 2-on-1. So, we'll see how good of prognosticators we are. I think 2 Red Sox wins, 1 Dodgers win. 2 of you guys rooting for the Sox, 1 of me rooting for the Dodgers. The poor Dodgers, they're really the underdogs this year. They really need everybody's support that's watching the podcast here or listening to the podcast. Please vote blue.
I love rooting for a scrappy underdog team.
Scrappy underdogs, Yeah,
one where they also own the Lakers, not a good prime time, very understated.
Yep. Don't have any recent championships or anything. Yep. No, it's a good time to be a Dodgers fan. Hopefully it continues this weekend.
With both of you, there's a fairly recent news story that's probably top of mind for you that the audience may or may not have seen.
Well, there's a big announcement that we made jointly with Microsoft just a few weeks ago about our new launch of our combined offering with Microsoft leveraging their SharePoint embedded product. So it's a big time in the market for M files, and we're already seeing some really really great feedback from that. But that's just me who's seen that.
No, I think a lot of people have seen it based on how many questions we're getting at Microsoft on it from customers and partners and analysts and so forth. So this has been some of the biggest news in this content management industry since SharePoint. So it's very exciting when you take two organizations that, frankly, up until a few weeks ago, were seen as competitors. And now we're definitely not. I mean, we've been working so closely together for months now. It doesn't feel like we've been competitors forever, but I think the market now is starting to understand like what the partnership is all about and how powerful this is.
Ryan, I'd love it if you could share with the listeners a little bit about M-Files. Microsoft is slightly larger than M-Files and maybe somewhat better known. M-Files has always had these fantastic solutions. Could you explain a bit about the solutions that M-Files brings to your customers?
I would describe M-Files as really a document management system, right? And a document management system that's differentiated by what we like to call a semantic architecture. People have described that as metadata driven in the past, but we like to think about it as a way to map your business, your bespoke business concepts, real world business objects onto your content. So if you're storing documents in the professional services landscape or the manufacturing business, you're going to want to connect those to the things that matter to you, the way that you think about your business. So M-Files is a document management system that is purpose built for industry workflows, business use cases, and we very much spend time in that professional services manufacturing industry. So we like to think about that semantic architecture as making us AI native, where we can apply the new LLM AI architectures and applications to that structure in a unique way.
That's really powerful, I think. Microsoft has, and SharePoint in particular, historically have been a very broad platform, but fairly generic. And it's customizable, but it's not customized out of the box. And over the past decade plus, organizations either choose between SharePoint or some third-party solution. And now, with this partnership, you don't have to make that choice. How did this get started between Microsoft and M-Files?
We've known M-Files for a long time. They've been incredible partners in so many parts of, what Microsoft has done from, Windows and SQL and Office and Azure and Dynamics and on and on and on. And even in SharePoint, M-Files has built great integrations and web parts and so forth to SharePoint. But there was always that customer choice that had to be made of, am I going to put this document in SharePoint or am I going to put this document in M-Files? And if it's in SharePoint, it's inside of M365 and I get all the co-authoring and purview and now Copilot capabilities. Or do I get all the incredible metadata and business objects and vertical solution expertise that M-Files provides, right? And it's a terrible choice for a customer to have to make. I think both of our organizations have realized we want to help customers and we don't want them to have to make that horrible choice. So let's make it so that they don't have to make that choice. You get all of the capabilities of M-Files, literally everything just works, and it's built on top of SharePoint embedded inside of M365. So you get purview and Copilot and co-authoring and sharing and all the things that people expect from Microsoft as well. So it's really, truly the best of both worlds.
So I think that that's a great point, Ian. Really, the way that we've looked at this is that there has been this pain point in the market, right? You had to, if you're a IT administrator or even a line of business user, you've really been forced to make a choice whether you're going to get the best of that co-authoring collaboration with the Microsoft platform that all of the M365 apps offer, or you're going to use or live in a third-party document management system. And for M-Files, we've been deeply integrated to Microsoft for a long time. Our aspiration as a company is to be the most closely aligned with Microsoft of any third-party document management system that's out there. And so for us, the opportunity to use part of the Microsoft platform to enable and unlock these capabilities and eliminate that choice, right? Make it a simple choice for customers who love what they get from Microsoft, but want those purpose and industry built vertical use cases from M Files to make that choice. And so that's the joint customer value here, I think, is extremely high.
Having worked in content management for a substantial part of my career, I find this very exciting. I'm wondering if you can share what you're starting to see and hear from customers about bringing your joint values together for them.
Even as we were doing the pre-briefings with a few customers under NDA, the things that we were hearing were just incredibly encouraging. Things like, oh my gosh, we've had all this pressure from our CIO that we need to standardize everything on Microsoft. So we were, looking at getting rid of M Files and other third-party systems. And now we won't, because it's built on Microsoft. It's built inside of Microsoft 365. So we can, keep using it or expand our use of it and so forth. And, that maybe if you're not built on M365 like M Files now is, that's maybe not the best news for those that may be listening in from other places. But it was really good news here. We had another customer who told us, we use M Files for all of our customer-facing documentation. They were a professional services company that was storing customer data there, but we use SharePoint for all of our internal documentation. And, we've been looking at Purview, but putting Purview just on top of our internal documentation wasn't exciting. But now all the stuff that's in M Files being in SharePoint embedded, now Purview will protect all of it. So we're going to go get E5 and Purview and all the things, right? Even in the early days, every briefing Ryan and I do together and our account teams do together seems to be customers are really excited about this. Customers that are prospects today that are just starting their journey saying, holy cow, this is a game changer. We're of course going this direction now because of this partnership. So it's been nothing but good from our side. What about you, Ryan?
I'd say extremely positive from our end too. I mean, the number of customer situations where people really value and love the capabilities they get with M Files, but they love it so they have it sitting there and they're using it as their document management system, yet having to pull documents out of that, use OneDrive or something like that to actually co-author and create and collaborate on those and then put it back into M Files. I mean, those are the situations where we've just completely eliminated, a whole step in a process that is pervasive throughout a customer base. And that is the first question we get from most of our existing customers when we share that with them is, okay, like, what do I have to do to go, make that possible? Right. So it's been a great conversation for us. People want that now. And that's just the first thing that we have, the first kind of component of the value proposition here, parts around Copilot, parts around Purview. We have customers that are using Copilot today and they say, this is fantastic, right? This is an opportunity for us to take what we're already doing and make sure that investment is extended to all of the content that we have with M Files. And then so many conversations that I've had where somebody is working actively on trying to map and do something very customized to map the Purview work that they have in their IT administration program to M Files. And we're just going to do that for them, right? I'm going to call my Purview guys and say, hey, that's something that M Files is taking care of for us. And so people really appreciated the proactive elimination of these challenges and pain points that are there.
When customers say, well, how do I get that? And I want that now. The answer is, they can have it now. Right. This is GA, right? This isn't like, oh, we're announcing something and it's coming this fall or later this year or anything like that. This is GA. You can literally and I'm not the guy to do this, but you can go into your M Files admin, turn it on, start using the SharePoint embedded containers and get this today, live, GA, available now, right? So it's real.
And if you think about the history of content management, there are many established players who are rivals. And you see this playing out every few years with things like the Gartner Magic Quadrant. With this partnership, how do you see customers deciding now on M Files versus Microsoft?
It's not a decision of either or. Everybody loves the story of the two titans of industry battling it out and only one can win and so forth. But that is not the case in today's world, right? The fallacy of enterprise content management of there's only going to be one system and so forth. The reality is that companies are going to use SharePoint for their portals. They're going to use SharePoint for lists. They're going to use SharePoint for document management in lots of places. They're going to have OneDrive for sync and share and so forth. And they're going to also have M files, and they're using that in the legal department and in the finance department and in the out on the shop floor, managing things in the factory or managing things at the refinery or things on the offshore rig and so forth, right? It's not an either or, it's a both. SharePoint for the things that SharePoint is great at, and M files for the deep expertise and vertical solutions for that engineer who's sitting there in AutoCAD and needs title block integration and syncing of metadata back and forth with their IBM Maximo system and so forth, right? Guess what? That is not a good use case for SharePoint. And anybody that tells you it is frankly making that up. That's a great use case for M files built on M365, right? That doesn't mean that the whole company is going to use that, but it means that the people that need that, and you should give them that by, putting M files on top of M365.
I'm really pleased to hear you say that, Ian. That is certainly how we view the partnership and how we view our role, which is to be a complementary player, and to serve the use cases that maybe aren't as well served by SharePoint. And so we stand ready for folks that maybe are having some of those challenges where it might not be the right use case, that we can come and support you right away. The other thing that I think is probably relevant here, you mentioned the integration component. So, one of the other things I think is incredibly important about what M-Files does is our line of business system integration. So, I've talked a lot about how we can map your business. Well, it's not just what you have in M-Files, it's what you have in other systems too. Think SAP, think some of your other kind of core line of business systems.
Like Dynamics.
Exactly. Those business objects, those business concepts can come into M-Files and you can apply those to that content, right? So you're getting a much more holistic view of what your content is relevant to, not just what you store, not just the concepts you can come up with in M-Files, but how does that map to other systems that you have to really create a source of truth around what is relevant.
Over the past 20 years, there's always been a distinction in content management between systems of engagement and systems of record. And Ryan, what you described is something I have seen before, during, and after Microsoft dozens and dozens of times. Organizations where users with the best of intentions are moving files from one place to the other to try to put it where they think it belongs. And frequently, they just forget. And so the authoritative version of the contract is in the wrong place or no place at all. So that integration, I think, is powerful.
They needed some amazing CLM features that M-Files provided, but they also needed the co-authoring and app mention that OneDrive provided. So they took the current version of the contract out of M-Files and put it in OneDrive and co-authored like crazy in it, and then forgot to put it back. And now the definitive version of the contract, the current version, is sitting in some user's OneDrive, right? We love people using OneDrive, of course, but that is probably not the place to be your contract management repository for your company, right? And so just think about, like, in just between our two organizations with M-Files and Microsoft, but all of the other folks out there that are living that every single day and just don't have to, right? Like, it's just such a huge improvement to everybody's workflows.
The reality for, information governance out there, for expectations around content organization. Every organization has policies, procedures, things that they expect their workers to do. Some don't, but almost everybody's working on that right now. And the reality is the lowest common denominator tends to prevail. Whatever places the least amount of burden on that end user is what ends up happening, right? And I think that to me is the real power of what we put together with this partnership, is we've now taken so much of that burden away. You don't have to remember to move it back. When it gets to M-Files, because M-Files understands your business concepts, it can automate how you actually define and organize that, right? So when you go back to find it again, doesn't matter if you're thinking about it from, it's that project that I worked on, it's that person I worked with, it's that time of year that I did it, it's this kind of deliverable, all these different ways to go back and identify that. that content that you're working on, and then all the workflow around that for that use case that you're working in.
At Ignite years ago, Dan Kogan and I were doing a presentation on content management. Content management usage patterns reveal an awful lot about human nature. And we were with an audience that was from all over the world. And there was a principled discussion about, can you trust end users or not? And the consensus that emerged is that almost every business user is trying to do the right thing through the path of least resistance, and they're a little bit lazy.
Everybody loves the library, Chris. Nobody wants to be the librarian, right? They need some help. And not having to do that organization in multiple places now, because you can use M files, get all the great capabilities there, all the amazing metadata, and all that content lives in M365. So huge.
So Ian, earlier you mentioned something called SharePoint Embedded. Most folks are quite familiar with SharePoint and OneDrive, but not SharePoint Embedded. What is SharePoint Embedded?
SharePoint Embedded is the culmination of decade plus R&D in the cloud, billions of dollars spent building out the best, most scalable back end to store and manage content in the industry that, frankly, the industry has ever seen. Processing literally billions of documents, new documents per day created by our customers. That's the back end, not only for SharePoint, but also for OneDrive, also for Stream, also for Copilot pages and notebooks, also for Loop, on and on and on. We built this back end for Microsoft. And, a couple of years ago, we said, hey, this is getting pretty good. We should allow our partners and customers to use this back end with whatever front end they want. So sometimes people call it headless, meaning it doesn't have a user interface. It is truly API only. This is not doc libraries. This is not pages. This is not lists. This is the repository that stores all the content. And it allows our customers and partners like M-Files to take advantage of all of that, enterprise grade scalability and security and capability that we provide, and not spend, all your time building a repository that manages versions and does check-in, check-out, and handles security and so forth. We take care of that for our customers and partners. This is definitely not the SharePoint that you are using day in and day out. The SharePoint that you're using day in and day out is the UI. The back end of that thing, where all the content is stored, is SharePoint Embedded, and that's what we provide to our customers. It's the basis for all of the content management we do at Microsoft, and also for our forward-thinking partners and customer organizations that are taking advantage of it too.
The headless nature of it, by the way, led to a brief period, about a week, where we were joking about calling this Project Ichabod Crane, or since Microsoft loves to have geography names, we refer to it for one day as Project Sleepy Hollow.
So I try not to use the H word, but it is a really easy way to say, hey, this thing is headless, right? You build the UI, you build the applications, you bring the vertical expertise and solutions, which is exactly what M-Files had and brought to the table in this great partnership.
Yeah. And maybe to bring it to life, the level of sophistication of SharePoint Embedded as a platform was what was appealing. And for M-Files, as I said, we've been extremely aligned to Microsoft throughout our entire history. We have our entire software cloud, software SaaS stack built on Azure, right? So today, or maybe before this partnership, we were already using Azure Blob Storage as our storage service, right? And so as we looked at our solution set out there in the market, SharePoint Embedded as the more sophisticated, highly scalable, proven platform that also unlocks these other capabilities, these native capabilities to the M365 platform, that felt like a no-brainer to us, right? To basically move up the stack and purchase a even more sophisticated platform from Microsoft.
Yep, Ryan, to that point, in the old days, people made their own operating systems, people made their own database engines, people built their own hardware, and now people use, commodity operating systems like Windows, commodity database systems like SQL Azure, commodity infrastructure like Azure, and we would say, we've built look, I'll have some hubris here and say we've built the best repository in the industry, and we want folks to take advantage of that, just like they do Windows and SQL and Azure, right?
We've moved beyond the days of storage is purely a commodity, and one storage system is the same as another, is the same as another. When the back-end service brings together security and compliance and sharing and co-authoring and AI, along with the fact that you're keeping all of that in a unified schema instead of having to separately manage security, manage compliance, deal with e-discovery or records management. Ryan, what are some of the things that you think are misunderstood about content management across the industry today?
I think understanding what is the value of an industry use case, and how you can bring value through your document management or content management platform, right? I think that traditionally content management has been seen and perceived as an infrastructure layer, right? It's this system that sits in the back. It's an IT. You have to go to IT to figure out, okay, can I use this? Can I not? But it hasn't really been connected, as we talked about earlier, to the front of the house, if you will, the end business users who have to, do their work and adhere and use this system. And so, when I think about content management, where content management is going, it's more of that vertical expertise, that application capability to do more of your work for you, because that content lives in an application like M-Files, right? Your work is easier because that content lives in a system that understands what are the projects that you're working on today? Who are the people that are part of that project? What are the deliverables that need to be done? And helps you move through your workflow in a faster way. And you use AI with that, right? So that's where I think people may have I'll call it an outdated perspective on what content management is and what content management can do, versus what folks like M-Files can do today.
Ian, one thing I've heard across the industry is the assumption that content doesn't need to be structured at all because AI is just going to solve all of these problems. And if it does need structure, that's a technology issue and not a business issue. I'd love to get your take on it.
AI is an incredible thing, all of it, not just LLMs, but all the things that led to this and, all the things that will come after LLMs. But it's garbage in and garbage out, right? You train your AI on a bunch of crap. If I just give, any AI system a whole bunch of annual reports from Microsoft, but not the last 3, and then I say, what were Microsoft's earnings last year? It's going to give me the earnings from, the latest one I have is 2023, so I'll give you the 2022 earnings, right? So you have to have the content organized. You just have to. And I think the realization that is happening right now in not just our customers and our partners, but our competitors, and frankly, companies that weren't even competitors to us at all in the content management world that were focused on ERP or CRM or whatever, is holy cow, the real jet fuel or rocket fuel for these LLMs and things like Copilot is the content. It's not the stuff in the structured database, in the CRM tool, in the ERP tool. It's all the other stuff there, because LLMs work on language, and language lives in documents. Language doesn't typically live in a table somewhere, inside of an ERP system, right? That's just numbers or very, very little language. Very, very, it's very structured, but it's not the rocket fuel that we need today. So this light bulb is coming on, and we're very interestingly seeing even players that were not traditional players in this market now caring a whole heck of a lot about content.
I've told dozens of businesses over the past year, your content is what makes you you. It's got your decisions, your creativity, your transactions represented in a way that is even more valuable in the era of AI.
Yeah, it's a representation of what your people know, right? I mean, we don't all write down everything that we know and put it into a document and store it somewhere, but hopefully a large part of what we do does produce content that can be stored and managed, and whether that's best practices and policies and procedures or invoices or claims or mortgage applications or contracts or you name it, right? The high value stuff does tend to get written down and turned into documents and hopefully put into a great document management system.
And I think, Ryan, I love the way you expressed taking that business vocabulary, those business objects that are verticalized for whatever sector you're in, and being able to express the business in more precision, because we've seen over and over and over again, having precision about your content has value not just for AI, which matters, but also for workflow, also for process, also for security, also for findability.
I would double down on Ian's statement of garbage in, garbage out, right? I think the value of organization of your content is so critical to effective implementations of AI. I'd say, one of the other things I think people are learning right now is the value proposition of a structured approach to your unstructured data, right? And that's really what a document management system is. It's a structured approach to your unstructured data. And we believe the differentiation of M files is with that semantic architecture that really speaks to your vocabulary of your business. That's how you produce the relevance through these LLM models. You have to give those LLM models the right thing to look at, and then it won't know what the right thing is unless you have some structure around what something is or isn't, right? So relevance is a key point here. I also think accuracy is a key point. So another fundamental value proposition of a document management system is having the right version, right? Or knowing what the right thing is to look at. And so you don't get false data. Think about how easy that is in an LLM world. The last 3 annual statements from Microsoft aren't in there. Well, you're not going to get the accurate one, but the system has to know that that's not the last one, right? You can't tell it anything. And then the third one is trust, right? And so I think this concept of oversharing in the AI world is incredibly concerning, right? LLMs, again, they don't know what not to look at. And so if you have overexposed certain kinds of information, think compensation information from HR, right? And that can get into the wrong hands in the organization, folks that shouldn't see that. That's a huge concern around AI implementations. And that fundamental proposition of a great document management system is it helps create that level of security and compliance around your content.
We had Jordan Uterhagen from Cadence on last week, and he was talking about the scenario he's seen in many organizations where you have a file named contract, and then a file named final contract, then a file named final contract, and then Bob's version of contract. And it's really hard.
And then a V2 at the end. For anybody listening or watching, if you have ever put at the end of a file V1, V2, V3, or change that to be V4, boy, you need a content management system. Something is not right. But it happens every day. We see it every day.
That structure helps tell AI which one of those is the one to use going forward.
Yep.
Microsoft and M Files have historically been rivals, but we're now able to come together to build joint solutions for customers, which is exciting. And I'm curious about what's going to happen next. We know that prediction is an imperfect science. We probably were completely wrong in our forecast of what was happening in baseball last weekend. Recognizing that, where do you see all of this going in the content management industry in the next few years?
Chris, I think the strong trend, even if you look at startups in the space, is toward solutions that are tailored for specific verticals with AI agents that come with those solutions or that frankly are the solution. I think we're going to continue to see that. I don't know that it's going to be agents, which are, fancy chatbots, but it's definitely going to be around solutions that are tailored to industry. This myth in the enterprise content management world that there was one system for the enterprise, and that's what everybody put every document in and so forth. And then, in our benchmarking and in industry benchmarking that folks like AIM have done, that is totally not the case, right? They're going to pick the best solution for the job that they need to get done. And I hope that will continue to be M Files with Microsoft together, right? And I think there's going to be more and more of that, more specialization, because the more specialized it is, the more well organized it can be, the better you can, leverage it with AI, the easier it is to secure it and put the right permissions on it. everything that we've been talking about. So I think that the pendulum is definitely swinging in that direction.
I can add on to that. I mean, I think where I see, our space going is, I think in the next 5 years, every organization of any size is going to be challenged to find a way to effectively implement AI into their business, because they'll be left behind if they don't. And the way to do that is with, as we just said, structured way to approach, what makes your organization you, which is all the content that you have. And so every organization is going to be asked to look at how they've managed their content historically and ask if that's the right way to do it moving forward. I think the beauty of the partnership we have here is, for certain use cases, they'll be in great shape, right? Because they're already using the platform, most of the time Microsoft, that works great for that particular use case. But also for other use cases, ones that have relevance to business critical customer documents, maybe your quality management, system and compliance approach for manufacturing business. Maybe it's certain project documents that you're utilizing. The beauty of this partnership is that there's another provider here, that's M-Files, who's going to continue to give you all the great things that you love about Microsoft, but also meet your needs for that AI ready situation that you need to be in order to effectively apply the new technologies that are out there.
When I think about the nature of sustaining competitive advantage in the market, if everyone is using identical AI, identical LLMs with no differentiation, nothing that makes them particular tuned to the content of a given organization, you're not going to get any advantage of one, over your competitors. Whereas if your AI is tuned to your organization, and it's tuned by having that structure and that content feeding into it in a way that's special, I think that's really powerful. So on Polaris, I always love to ask our guests to talk about something from outside of the world of business or technologies. It could be a book or a movie or a television show. What's something that you'd love to share with the audience?
Oh man, Chris, I'm going to go just out on a limb here. I'm from the generation where the Adam Sandler Saturday Night Live kind of movies were a big deal, and Happy Gilmore too, man. It is not necessarily the thing that you want to watch with your young children. They need to be of a certain age. It is, there's some bathroom humor and more in there, but boy, that had me just absolutely laughing. So, I'll put that in there. I could have been more politically correct and said Superman or something, but it's sports, and it's hilarious. And if you want to know what just stuck out of my mind when you asked that, it's that.
Ian, you're not going to believe this. That was also the thing that I was going to say, and I promise the audience
they've done a good job with marketing it, man. Like it's gotten to all of us.
let me tell you maybe a bit of a unique reason why it's top of mind for me. So I mentioned I'm here in Manhattan. Across the hall from me is a gentleman, good friend of mine now, but I originally knew him as my neighbor. My neighbor is in the cast of Happy Gilmore too. He plays young Happy Gilmore. So he just happens to look so much like Adam Sandler that they have cast him in the movie. So he was on set telling me all about how the Netflix production's going. So that is really, really funny.
I swear we did not plan this. I had no idea about that whatsoever. I was like, he's a Boston guy with the Bruins jersey, and it's sports, and it's hilarious, and it just came out last night, and oh my goodness. So there we go. If you haven't seen it, give Netflix your money and go watch it.
So my connection to Happy Gilmore is my brother Tom, who's the new president of production for Mattel Studios. When he was much younger in his career, he was a PA for Adam Sandler and his production company, Happy Madison. So knowing that that's the name of the production company, I'm wondering if Billy Madison 2 is something that's going to be coming to Netflix.
Oh, man.
Netflix did something right with that partnership with Mr. Sandler.
It's been great exploring this partnership. I'd love to learn more about how this is unfolding and have you back on the podcast. What's the best way for the audience to stay in touch with you, and what's next for this partnership?
The first thing I would say, which I think speaks to the depth of the partnership, if you go to aka.ms/mfiles, you will find mfiles. So that speaks to what we're doing together here. One-stop shop, easy to get to, easy for me to say, aka.ms/mfiles.
You can always go to the mFiles website and find more about our partnership there. You can see the press release that we announced just about 3 weeks ago. And then I'm always available as well. I'm happy to share my email, ryan.berry@m-files.com. So welcome any questions, conversations, and would love to share more about what we're doing.
We'll absolutely share all of that in the show notes.
You can, of course, istory@microsoft.com. Anything you send to me about mFiles, I'll connect Ryan. He'll do the same. We're peas in a pod here.
Ryan Barry from mFiles, Ian Story from Microsoft. Their new joint solution that delivers mFiles on SharePoint embedded on Microsoft 365 is available now. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
We'll be right back.
To really create a source of truth around what is relevant to a certain person or situation or components of your business.
Up next on Polaris Events. We're about halfway through 2025, but the calendar is busier than ever. Here's what we're watching. FY26 Forward, Microsoft Partner Success Strategies. On August 26th, I'll sit down with our CEO, Michelle Caldwell, for a fireside chat about how Microsoft partners can best align for success in the new fiscal year. The London Tech Leaders Summit kicks off October 7th at the Minster Building near the Tower of London in London, England. Experts Live, October 10th at Microsoft New York in Times Square. The Vancouver AI Summit, this will be October 20th at Harbor Center in Vancouver, British Columbia. Closing out the year, we're looking forward to TechCon 365 in Dallas and Microsoft Ignite this November in San Francisco, as well as ESPC 25 this December in Dublin, Ireland. We'll have links to all of that and more in the show notes. You can learn more at Synozur.com/events, and we'll add more events throughout the year. And if you have an upcoming event you'd like us to promote on Polaris, please get in touch and we'd be happy to include it. For another episode, I'd like to thank our guests Ryan Barry and Ian Story for explaining the new partnership between mFiles and Microsoft. We encourage you to check out our show page for links to everything we talked about today and more. Visit us at polaris.synozur.com. Send us your questions and feedback for the Synozur team. You can reach us via email at polaris@synozur.com. Remember to subscribe, rate, review, and tell all your friends about the show. And follow us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Polaris is produced with help from Riverside.fm. Our theme song, Alternative Dream, is provided courtesy of Adobe. Additional music and sound provided by Indie Guy Records. Graphic design by Josh Brantley. Thanks for listening. I'm Chris McNulty, and this has been Polaris, a show that charts the course for business and technology transformation from Synozur. Learn more at Synozur.com. See you next time. Keep following your North Star.